Welcome back. Week 17, cashing points. We got a fun 14-game slate go through on Sunday. I'm back with my guy, Scott Barrett, who is battling through a mysterious illness. It's kind of like a flu game for him. Scott's been a little sick this week, but he's joining us tonight. And we got John Proctor on the show tonight. What's going on, guys? Week 17. Hope you guys had a good Christmas. And, New Year's this weekend. Got a full game of full slate of football. Gonna be a good weekend.
Yeah, not a mysterious illness. Tested positive for COVID. Was very sick. 103 fever. Not a fun time. And so I'm way behind on research. Jake is writing the bulk of the slate breakdown. He did an amazing job with it, but we're kind of tag teaming it. I'm a ruthless and vicious editor. Wrote up some of the blurbs, kind of changed some things around. So that's going to be coming out tomorrow. I will just say though, I know Johnny gives me grief, but like my edge is I'm not the smartest man in the room, not Arthur Smith. It's just, I put in an insane amount of hours and wasn't able to do that this week. So definitely like discount my opinion, de-weight it more than you typically would. And it's weird. This is a week where I'm kind of approaching it like how Johnny approaches it. Where typically like everything report, I write up like all the obvious best plays. And then I sort of forget about them because I'm super deep into the weed, into my own galaxy brain plays and all these other plays I have to write up. But for this slate, I'm kind of looking at it, fresh eyes, big picture. Johnny, by the way, is like a savant. It's insane. He's the most intuitive DFS player of all time. I just like sit back and marvel at it consistently. But I'm looking at this slate and I have a big picture topic I'd like to start the show off with and get your opinion on. I was talking to Russ, who won the Millie earlier in the season, and I thought I found some holes in my game, which is, sometimes I get too excited about a very contrarian game stack. Like last week was Miami, Dallas, just like no one else on it. So I got so excited for it because massive upside. If that game did hit, then major edge on the field. And I also feel that way typically about like very high priced options or like jamming in all the high price options. So like I have that unique lineup, but I just don't think that's where my edge is. It's typically more just like 6 to 7K range and just, hoping all those plays hit, 20 to 25 DraftKings fantasy points, whatever. Anyway, this week to me, I kind of want to just throw all that out again. It feels defined by 3 plays and 3 plays only. Christian McCaffrey in the nut spot.
Yep.
Kyron Williams in the nut spot. And remember, I won 25K a couple weeks ago playing both. And then Tyreek Hill, a little banged up, but no Jalen Waddle, just insane usage when Waddle's not on the field. Guys shooting for 2,000 receiving yards. And how do you approach that, Johnny? Do you have to have 2 on every lineup? Was it too Galaxy brain to play all 3?
I think this. I feel like this, and Graham and I were talking about it just before you popped on. I feel like a lot of that is going to depend on the injury news that we're still waiting on, as to like whether or not we get these value running backs. Like, are we going to have Zamir and Clyde? Like, are we going to?
I don't think we're getting Clyde. There might be a chance we get Charbonnet.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Chuba's questionable, Kenneth Walker's questionable, Najee's questionable. Like all these running backs are questionable. I mean, and we don't like 100% know on most of them, whether or not we're going to have that value. So I think that's really what, like, can you fit Tyreek and CMC? Like we'll see, but I think everyone's going to want to try.
Yeah, we're going to get Zamir for sure. Why don't you think we're going to get Clyde, Scott? You got some news on Pacheco?
He practiced today, right?
Limited, but he's still got a clear protocol. Yeah.
Well, I mean, even then, it's like if you want to play Kyron and CMC,
yeah,
and you can only play one more running back. And Zamir is like fine enough, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting slate. We would have potentially gotten Jacoby Brissett at 4,900 too, but he popped up with a hamstring injury. I think people are going to play Tyrod at 46 too. So it is a really, really interesting slate. Let's talk through it. We're going to walk the slate here as we usually do. Get it started here with Patriots at Bills. Bills getting 14. It's up from 12. Total is up to 40. One of the few clean-ish games this week. We're going to see if Hunter Henry can play. Bills might get AJ Epineza back. Johnny, I'll throw it to you first, man. I think we're going to see pretty big ownership on Jalen Hurts, obviously in a great spot against the Cardinals. Josh Allen is 1K or 100 cheaper on DK, and he's going to be like 5-6%. What do you think about him this week? Will you be playing him in a? I mean, this is going to be pretty contrarian for Josh Allen as far as that goes.
Am I going to be playing Jalen Hurts? Is that
no Josh Allen?
Josh Allen, right? Yeah, I think this slate is where getting the big QBs right is going to be really important. And it's like Philly team total 30, Buffalo 27, and everyone's like, New England's not going to push Buffalo, and it's like Arizona's not going to push Philly either.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're in like that different of spots. But obviously Jalen Hurts, has the tush push that, puts him in a much better floor position. But I think Allen's ceiling right now with how Philly is playing versus how Buffalo is playing, I think Allen's ceiling is way higher.
Yeah. Hurts gets to his ceiling faster, if that makes sense, I guess, with the push. But I mean, you're right. Allen has 45. I'm not sure if he has that here in the spot though, Scott. So this is a pretty gross game overall. I know you said you're, not into your typical research, but even like 50% Scott Barrett is better than the field, in my opinion. So what do you think about this game here, man?
Yeah, so I led off with those big three expensive potential slate wreckers for a reason, and in order to fit, I guess even two of those, two of those. I think I'm just full fading the expensive quarterbacks just to get to those guys. And I kind of feel good about it. Josh Allen, I mean, 6 rushing touchdowns over his last 4 games. That's awesome. But outside of that, he's like not really playing well. He's not very productive through the air. Who do you stack him with? Gabe Davis, who scores a 0 2 out of every 3 games, or Stephon Diggs, who's been a ghost for I don't know how many weeks now. And under Joe Brady, we're seeing their pass rate over expectation just totally fall off a cliff. And the primary beneficiary of that has been James Cook, 20 plus carries in back-to-back games. He looks really good, hyper efficient on a per touch basis. He's getting deep targets, which is extremely rare for a running back. According to the supermodel, he's like a top 3 value on both sites, and no other site has it that way. But yeah, so I think that's interesting, even if the matchup's not really amazing on paper, but it does look like a spot where, I mean, I don't think New England's going to push Buffalo. And if that's the case, maybe it's the James Cook show.
Yeah, it's so bizarre last week that the downfield targets, like you mentioned, just completely dried up in a great spot too. So we got to see if that comes back. He did have 346 and a receiving touchdown this matchup back, I think in week 7 when they played. And I'm with you on DK. I think he's definitely a value. On FanDuel, he's their correct price though. So I'm with you on that. Patriots side, I mean, it's just Zeke. If you want to play Zeke, it's completely fine, but whatever. I mean, there's better running back plays this week. Any other thoughts here, Johnny, Scott?
I think we're waiting on Hunter Henry, right?
Yeah.
He's like fine if he plays, and I guess what's Gesicki even priced? 2,800. I guess he would be like fine. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing that just really gets you all that excited.
Yeah. Him and Pharaoh Brown split last week too. So If we
I
get,
think Zeke is a really good play. He's averaging 15.5 receiving fantasy points per game with Bailey Zappi. Just like if you just look at the snap share, the carries, the targets, this is like the sort of volume you should expect any running back to score, 28 fantasy points per game with. You have to discount it because it's Zeke, and New England's offense is terrible, but it's just insane volume and usage. I'll also add that I don't think the Patriots defense is a terrible play. You could stack Zeke. I don't think there's any chance, they're going to have positive game script for too long, but just, turnover prone, very cheap. And then DeMario Douglas definitely deserves a conversation. He's popping as one of the top values of the slate. He's had like 8 to 9 targets in just about every one of his games over the last 6 or 7 weeks. To me, he's just basically the new Jacoby Myers, 0 touchdowns in the year, minimal upside, but just, projected targets at that cost is great. And let's not forget that Buffalo is the number one, like short to intermediate funnel defense. They give up nothing deep. And that's where Douglas operates. And basically where Zappi only throws to anyway.
Yeah, Douglas is great. I think he's a fine cash play, but for tournaments, man, I'm not there.
I think he's a top 3 cash play. Tournaments, I'm not going to play him. He's going to be owned.
Yeah. Zeke's tough to play too at ownership. 13-point team total. It's just like,
it's not just the team total, man. Like last 3 weeks, I mean, they have gotten no push up front. Zeke is, I don't think he's dust, but he's close. And I mean, he has to be close in this game.
And he has to score to like get there. I mean, even, you get 9 for 30 last week and, 27 rushing yards. He doesn't really get there, but then he scored. So, that puts you into the conversation.
Bro, Zeke,
you'd say Zamir has more upside, right?
Yes.
Regardless of cost.
Yeah. I think the Raiders defense is like,
really good
on the up and up. So I'd rather pair him with them too. Yeah.
Bro, Zeke's longest carry over the last 2 weeks is 6 yards. Just saying. It's not great. Falcons, Bears, keep it moving here. Bears are getting 2.5. This move through 3. 38 is the total. Falcons are pretty clean, actually, in the injury report. Bears side, they're not going to have Darnell Mooney. He has a concussion, and Cole Kmet got back to a limited practice today. He has a knee injury. He seems like he's a legit game time call. Scott, you were mentioning, you're not going to play a lot of the high-priced quarterbacks. Are you interested in a little Justin Fields at 7,300, man? I mean, I don't think too many people are going to play him here on the spot.
Yeah, I'm not. Jake did write him up though. Atlanta's really vulnerable to mobile quarterbacks. Obviously, massive slate breaking potential with his legs. DJ Moore's not healthy. Cole Kmet's not healthy, and that's kind of just enough for me to.
Yeah. Moore is not on the injury report, but he did ding up that ankle last week. But yeah, man, this is a really interesting spot. Falcons are giving up 10.5 yards per carry on quarterback scrambles. I had to double check that in the data suite. 10
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's a great stat, Graham.
Yeah, absolutely wild. I love Fields' upside here, but I'm with you. I mean, it's really hard to stack him. Even if Moore were healthy, if we thought he was healthy, it's a really tough spot. AJ Terrell has been really good on the boundary. I'd like Cole Kmet too. I mean, Falcons, we've been targeting tight ends against the Falcons for years, but I don't think he's healthy either. So that definitely gives a little bit of a damper on this spot here, Johnny. What do you think about Fields? What do you think about this game here?
I think this is not a game that I really have all that much interest in at all. I do think we should pay attention for Sunday. Like if Donta Foreman ends up being a scratch,
we're going all in on Roshan again, Johnny.
Oh God, kill me.
Oh my goodness.
I think we can play Khalil Herbert again. He'd be someone you would want to pair with Bears defense. I do think there's a little bit of hot hand stuff there though. So it's like we can totally go to Herbert and then they end up, riding Roshan.
I think that's what it was last week, man. Herbert got the hot hand and they just wrote it. So
yeah, he came out with the 13-yard run right off the bat, and that was all she wrote. But I think I would have some interest there, but don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. And then otherwise, I mean, I do like Bears defense again. I don't think they'll have much ownership. They disappointed last week, but I think they're still good, and I think Atlanta is still not good. So
yeah, Heineke will throw a pick six too. Fields and Bears D, I think, is probably just the way to play this game.
I don't know that I'm going to write him up, but just Bijan.
Yeah, we got to talk Bijan at 6,600 here.
Yeah, Chicago giving up the most schedule adjusted receiving fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. It's like 3 times as much as the next closest. Defense, he had 72 rushing yards last week, 10 targets, 7 catches, 50 yards. I know everyone wants to cry about Tyler Algier, but that was still top 5 XFP last week by a good margin. So he's okay. I don't know that. To me, it's again, I have to keep coming back to it. Those 2 really expensive running backs, and then the extreme values. And
yeah, and I think I was thinking about this the other day, and it's like, even when he has hit a ceiling, it hasn't been like that good, because he still can't get 30 touches. He just can't fucking do it. Like, they will not let him do it. And so, like, you're never going to get a 40-point game out of Bijan. It's like, I can get a 28-point game maybe, but like, I can also get a 4-point game so often that, like, you probably would have just been better off just excluding him the entire season.
Well, I kind of wanted to argue against that, just because, like, the guy we know is so talented, and he's just not breaking off long runs. Like, you'd think he'd have some of that Breece Hall to him, and we're just not seeing that this year. But again, to your credit too, it's also like, okay, he scores a touchdown. Then does Arthur Smith give the next goal line carry to Tyler Algier? Probably, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they're just always going to do weird shit at the goal line, but I'm more with you, Scott. 7,100 over on FanDuel for Bijan. Really interesting tournament play over there. I've loved him when he's like in that 7K pocket. When he gets down there, man, there's been a few times. I think it was in that Saints game I was on him at 7K, and he went off. So I do like him this week as a tournament play. But Johnny, you're right. This game is probably going to end up being an absolute turd. Could definitely see that happening here.
You definitely won't. I mean, no one's going to play Bijan, so you definitely will, get him at low ownership. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right, we'll keep it moving here. Raiders, Colts. Colts getting 3.5. Over under is 42.5. Josh Jacobs is doubtful. We're going to get Zamir White here. Again, White not getting a lot of targets, but workhorse role, that's for sure. 76% snap rate last 2 weeks. He's just 5,100 on DK. He is 6,100 on FanDuel. He's probably going to be one of the most popular running backs on the slate, along with Christian McCaffrey. On the Colts side, Michael Pittman is back. He got back to a full practice. He's going to play. Zach Moss is out, so it'll be JT's backfield in this spot. Kind of fun game. There's also the downside that it's Aiden O'Connell versus Gardner Minshew. Johnny, what do you think about Zamir White, man? I mean, he's going to be 45%, but makes sense.
Yeah, and I think the target thing is interesting. Seems to be like a big talking point, and everyone's sort of mentioned it this week. But he had 4 targets the week before, and Aiden O'Connell had 9 completions. So I think maybe if this game with the Chiefs had gone a little differently, maybe he would have had more targets. So I probably am not as concerned about him for game script as I think maybe most people are. I mean, if they get smoked, I think he comes off the field, but I think he's going to dominate the running back share for the most part. And I think Colts are a team that, I was surprised they opened as, what were they, 4.5 point favorites, I think, when it opened, something like that.
It's moved through 4. It's down to 3.5.
Yeah, I would not want to bet the Colts here. They just feel like a team that's sort of dying at the end of the year. So I like Raiders D paired with White, and I think Raiders D is not going to be a lot owned. I think that ownership might come up as Zamir White gets popular, but I still think you're going to get them at 5-6%, something like that, to help you bring down that Zamir ownership, who's going to be second highest owned running back, probably behind McCaffrey.
Yeah, he's going to be mega chalk, but Yeah, 28 routes last 2 weeks for Zamir White. It's not like, Abdullah's playing a ton, but 15 routes for him, 3 targets for Abdullah, 4 for White. So, I mean, it's a minor concern, but I'm with you. I think the likelihood that the Raiders get smoked here is pretty low. I mean, their defense is playing extremely well. Their run defense is like completely different unit. I mean, they're giving up the fifth fewest yards per carry since week 9 when Pierce took over. It's a really good team. I mean, they're competing their asses off for sure. But yeah, I mean, Zamir is just an awesome play. He's an awesome play.
Yeah,
Scott,
I just wanted to add to what you said, Johnny. He has twice as many routes run as Amir Abdullah the last 2 weeks, like a 50% route share. That's really good.
Yeah.
And like you said, Aiden O'Connell had 0 completions after the first quarter of last week's game. And what did they do? They just went insanely run heavy. And what should they do this week? The exact same thing, because Indianapolis has easily one of the worst run defenses in all of football. I could see easy multiple touchdown plus 100 rushing yard upside for Zamir White. I think he's an awesome play.
Yeah. I do think playing Taylor and Colts defense on the other side is a little bit interesting, because I think the way that Zamir really busts is like if O'Connell throws a pick six, I think it could definitely hurt him. Like, I think, he can be targeted, but like, I don't think he can get, 8 targets.
Right. Yeah, the thing I'm most interested in with White is obviously that touchdown equity, Scott, like you alluded to. Last 7 games, Colts have faced 16 carries inside the 5-yard line, second most only to the Seahawks. They're not playing good run defense, and they give up a ton of touchdowns. It's such a good spot. Johnny, is there any interest in Davante Adams leverage? I have to bring it up.
No, I think like you could play, if you wanted to do a mini with like, I guess like Pittman and Adams maybe, but it just feels expensive for what this game is. Like, I have some interest in Pittman. That's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah. Fair enough. Had to bring it up, but yeah.
I kind of want to love Pittman. He just like reminds me of Keenan Allen this year.
Mm-hmm.
Just like Minshew was locking onto him as his first read. He's crushing it. Double-digit catch upside. It's a good matchup. Raiders are allowing completions to the first read at the highest rate, something like that. But I don't know that he's going to be like a core play for me, but I do think he's a little underrated at least.
No, Pittman's a really strong play, man. Raiders are playing like the 3rd highest rated cover 3, and Pittman's first read target share versus cover 3 is nearly 40%. I mean, he's going to get funneled the freaking ball. So I'm with you. I had to bring up Davante Adams. We'll get to Nico Collins. I think Nico is just the nuts at 7,200. I just had to bring up Adams, but yeah, Pittman is really, really strong, I think. Anything else here? I think it about covers it. Michael Mayer is going to miss this game, toe injury. Yeah.
Yep. And Austin Hooper just sucks.
Yeah, he's so bad, dude. Oh my God. All right. Keep it moving. Rams Giants. Rams are rolling, man. Matt Stafford is just absolutely balling. 5.5. Rams are getting 5.5. 43.5 is the total. Puka Nacua did pop up today with some hip tightness. Sean McVay says he expects him to play, but just something to monitor on insane injury slate. Giants side, they're pretty clean. They have some defensive linemen to beat up, but I think they're all going to play in this spot. And Scott, you talked about it at the top, man. The decisions are Kyren, McCaffrey, and Tyreek this week. And, we've been all over Kyren all season. He's still too cheap at 8,300. This is an awesome spot. I mean, Giants have just been absolutely hammered against opposing ground games. And I mean, Kyren has just been the nuts basically every single week he's been healthy. Rams have another strong team total. They're big favorites. I mean, we're all in on Kyren here. But yeah, like you've been saying, man, I mean, it's hard to play McCaffrey and Kyren together, but I think it's obviously the highest projected running back group you can get to. So let's talk through Kupp and Nacua then. I think
let me just sell Kyren.
Yeah.
So he's projecting to be half as owned as Christian McCaffrey. As scary as it is, I think I'm going to have more Kyren than McCaffrey, just in part because, then I can leverage the field and play a bunch of Purdy stacks. It's a nuts matchup either way. But so this is a top 5 matchup. Giants are really vulnerable on the ground, especially in recent weeks. Against bottom 10 defenses by schedule adjusted, Kyren is averaging 33.9 DraftKings fantasy points per game, and wins alone 24.3 fantasy points per game. The Rams are going to have the best starting field position of any team in football this week, maybe. And what do we know about Kyren Williams? He leads all players, including Christian McCaffrey, in red zone XFP per game, really the focal point of the offense inside the red zone. Massive touchdown upside. You could stack him with Rams defense for a little extra boost. Again, like I'm going mad just looking at CMC, Kyren, Tyreek, guys with legitimate 40-point upside.
Yeah. Yeah, Kyron's great, but yeah, he'll definitely be half his own because you just can't, like, you can't fit all 3 of those guys.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And then, so then back to the 3 Rams wide receivers. You guys have a lean there?
Man, I wanted to play Puka so bad. He's like the one guy you can point to that's like chasing accolades for obviously he's back like in the race with for offensive rookie of the year, and then he's pushing to break rookie receiving record. But the hip thing is weird, and I think we're gonna not really know until tomorrow or Sunday.
You know who's healthy, playing 97% of the snaps and has a touchdown in 4 straight games?
Yeah,
Demarcus Robinson.
That's right.
You know who could use DeMarcus? You know who could use DeMarcus Robinson is the Kansas City Chiefs.
Bro, oh my God.
He just needed a real quarterback to throw him the ball.
Yep.
There you go. Stafford is playing like infinitely better than Mahomes. I'm with you, Johnny. I came in wanting to talk up Nakua, but this is weird. I mean, we know what the Giants do. Wink blitzes a shit ton, and against blitzes, Puka Nakua is averaging 3.2 yards per route run. It's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah, man, I love Puka this week, but this hip thing is a little weird. Giants side, I got nothing, honestly. Any interest in Waller? I mean, you could play Saquon.
So again, one way to fit all 3 of those guys I've been talking about is a little Tyrod Darius Slayton stack. Can I interest you in a little Tyrod Darius Slayton stack?
It's Tyrod, Scott.
Tyrod, yeah. So Tyrod is not the hypermobile guy he used to be, but he's been mildly competent. He's priced like, I don't know, a random RB3 on a team. He's like 4,600. So you really don't need a lot. I would say my clear lean would be Darius Slayton. Right now, he's the Giants' only every down receiver, 93% snap share since the bye. He's at his best as a deep threat. And that's really what Tyrod has brought to the team outside of everyone else. He's accounted for 23% of the team's dropbacks, but 40% of the deep completions. He's not seeing a ton of targets with Tyrod, but 14.7 yards per target average. That's pretty elite. This is all noteworthy because the Rams have seen the most deep targets of any defense. They're also the worst defense against outside wide receivers over the last 5 weeks. He's 3,400, extremely cheap. So I like that stack.
Yeah, I like Waller.
Yeah, same.
His splits with, I mean, you're getting into the weeds, but splits with Taylor a little better, even though it's a smaller sample size. Rams have been crushed by tight ends. 4,500 for what should be the healthiest he's been all year.
Yeah.
Route share was up to 63% last week, up from 45. Like you mentioned, good spot. He's got 24 targets, I think, on 95 attempts from Tyrod. So I think he's in play.
I don't think he's worth it at that route share. You'd really be betting on that to jump.
To be
and I
75.
Just don't know
yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what I'm saying. I think it should.
Yeah.
he should be moving up that direction. Because if they don't plan to ramp him up at all, like they could just shut him down. But he's out there.
Yeah, he's definitely a good play on DK. He's a little harder on FanDuel. There's some really good tight ends on FanDuel this week. Tight ends are really easy on FanDuel. Kind of depends on where you're going with it, but yeah, man, I'm with you. I think I'd prefer Waller, but Scott's point on Slayton is interesting. All right, keep it moving. Cardinals, Eagles. Johnny, you were talking about earlier. I mean, let's back up actually. Eagles are getting 11.5, 12. This is actually up from 10.5. I'm a little surprised it's moved up. I'm surprised people are betting on the Eagles at 10.5 to 11.5. 48 is the total. Marquise Brown is out and Darius Slayton is out on the Eagles side. We were talking through Hurts versus Allen. We were talking through the high-end quarterbacks. Hurts is definitely going to catch ownership this week. What do you think about this game, Johnny? Because I'm kind of with you. There's a few angles here, but I'll let you go first for your thoughts on this game here.
I think they're going to run the shit out of the ball on the Cardinals. Surprised the total is as high as it is. I mean, I think the Eagles can spank them. Everyone kind of looked at
the total's 48 because the Eagles could put up 34 with ease, and
yeah. But I think everyone looks at the Giants game as like the Eagles, got pushed by the Giants or whatever, but they really didn't. They just like made 4 or 5 really bad mistakes. I think if they didn't make those mistakes, they probably not as stoked about Hurts this week as if they hadn't. So yeah, I just man, I think they're going to run the ball a lot. It's just annoying because DeAndre Swift goes out at the 2 every single time, and then Hurts runs it in. But yeah, I don't think he has as high upside as his ownership's going to be.
Yeah, I'm with you. The likelihood he scores 2 touchdowns is so low because they're pushing Hurts' ass at the 1. Did you see that quote from Kelsey? He was like apologizing to Swift. He's like, what's going to happen when we get into the 2 or 1. I'm just sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, he scored last week, but I'm with you. They're going to run the absolute hell of the ball. The other thing here is like the Cardinals play a ton of too high. Like they are playing the league's highest amount of too high coverage over the last 6-7 weeks. Obviously, Jonathan Gannon, super familiar with his old former team. AJ Brown has massive splits against too high coverages, like absolutely massive. He's averaging nearly 4 yards per route run and a 37% target share against 1 high. Dips to 23% target share with 2.1 yards per route run against 2 high. Devonta Smith has been the beneficiary of that. And I'm not sure if a ton of people are going to play Devonta. So I quite like Devonta with Hurts. Kind of an interesting angle into this game, but I'm more with you, Johnny. That's where I've been this whole week. I think they run it like 35, 36 times in this spot, which, we might be skinny with the targets here, but it is a really, really good spot for Devonta Smith in this game. Cardinals side, I think, is kind of simple. I mean, honestly, McBride's too cheap again. Any interest in James Conner, Scott? I mean, he's been running so hot, but they're just massive dogs here.
No, he's been so game script dependent, and I just don't see any way there's good game script. This game is frustrating to me because, like, on paper, this is just like the nut spot for both sides. I just have a hard time finding someone to take advantage of it. Jalen Hurts is going to be massively owned, but like all of his receivers aren't going to be, and especially Smith relative to AJ Brown. So I think that's a great call, Graham, the Devonta stack. But even then, it's like we haven't seen a spike week game from like either wide receiver like at their price that's made it worthwhile to play them. And then with DeAndre Swift as well, it's not just like he's getting cucked at the goal line, which he is, but it's also Kenneth Gainwell's mixing in more. He had a 55% snap share to Gainwell's 40% last week. Boston Scott also saw a few snaps. And they're really just spreading the ball around so much. And then on Arizona's side, it's, no one's healthy. Maybe Trey McBride. This is like, you want to attack Philadelphia with perimeter boundary wide receivers, which the Cardinals just don't really have. So yeah, Trey McBride is just always in play. He's the man. Love that dude. And then Greg Dortch as a punt is fine. Pretty strong in the matchup.
Yeah, Dortch is the only Cardinal guy I'm entertaining. That's not McBride, really.
Yep. Hope all the Dynasty Bros traded all their Michael Wilson shares because that guy sucks.
Yeah. I took him a bunch in best ball, and I'm kind of with you, man. He sucks. Thomas Tipple and a couple other Dynasty guys tried to tell me that he sucks.
Dortch also has the nuts or a great schematic matchup, and Michael Wilson has like a worst possible schematic matchup.
Yeah, well, Michael Wilson has 7 targets and no catches over the last 2 weeks, so that's just
I think two of them were in the end zone. Yeah, this guy.
He was sick at the Senior Bowl, though. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, no, and
him and Tank Dell look like the best wide receivers.
Yeah, Brett said he was like one of the best big-bodied receivers from a route running perspective at the Senior Bowl. So I give Brett some credit, but yeah, he stinks. Greg Dortch is the only guy I'm interested in. That'll do it. Saints Bucks, keeping it moving. Bucks getting 2.5. This is moved through 3. 42.5 is the total. Real quick, Saints tackle Ryan Ramczyk is going to miss this game. Bucks side, they're going to be without Shaq Barrett and Carlton Davis. Chris Olave, absolutely shredded the Rams last week, but he's like not 100%. He said it today. He's like still, dealing with this ankle injury. He went for 9 and 123 last week, but just something to note. Olave is going to play, but I don't think he's 100%. He's 6,800, really strong price. Johnny, I'll throw it to you first for your thoughts on this game. I mean, I've gone back and forth because, in general, we like always kind of lower late season divisional matchups just a little bit. This game definitely has some pathways to upside, and there's like a few games in the early window, even though there's 10 that have that kind of pathway. So kind of tricky game, but what do you think, man?
Yeah, I think this is one of my favorite games for mini stacks, and I feel like every week it is the Bucks. I think we know what the Bucks are going to do. Like, they can't really run the ball, so they throw to Evans, they throw to Godwin, they throw to White, and then you can't run on the Bucks, so whoever's facing them has to throw the ball too. So we usually see like 1, 2, 3 receivers in these Bucks games just like pop off. So I like Olave because I think the price sort of bakes in the injury, but I also I think more so I like Rashid Shaheed just because I think the upside is there for long touchdowns every week, and the Bucks are like, if you had to pick a team that a guy can score 50-yard touchdowns on, it's the Bucks.
Yeah, man. Rashid's a really strong play. He's their punt returner. They've kind of like had them in this like part-time-ish role. Not last week, 88% route share, season high for Shaheed. So I'm definitely with you on that. Bucks have just been flamed. Outside, inside does not matter. Getting Shaheed in a full-time role, who we've been on as a really good player for 2 years now, is really nice. So I'm with you on Shaheed here. Scott, what do you think about this game, man?
So I'm not with you on Shaheed. Neil Orfield's been calling me the Shaheed whisperer, and all I'm doing is I'm saying, if he's up against a defense that ranks top 10 against zone coverage, play him. If not, don't play him. And he's going to get a defense that plays a lot of man. I will say, to your credit, like I think he's good. He's
those
a good
guys playing man are like, no one knows who they are.
Right. So there's that. It's also a major usage uptick without Michael Thomas, more targets, all that goodness. I just want to play Chris Olave, though. You brought up the ankle. Is the ankle any worse than it was last week?
He's not on the injury report, but I mean, he was just saying today that he's not 100%.
Yeah, Kat Terrell says it's still, that he told her it still hurts.
Yeah.
Well, he's seen at least 8 targets in 8 of his last fully healthy games, averages 10.1. He's eclipsed 90 receiving yards in each of his last 4, averages 23 DraftKings fantasy points per game. And, like you were saying with Shaheed, this is a nuts matchup. Buccaneers defense giving up the 3rd most schedule adjusted to opposing wide receivers, 6th most to wide receiver ones. So, I really like Olave.
Yeah. I think the other thing I like for Shaheed too, that's like not really baked in is that if Olave like leaves the game,
Yeah.
then Shaheed is like the stones at his price.
Yeah,
Right.
and good call on Bucks playing a little more man. It's not any more than like a quarter of their coverage snaps though, so they're still relatively zone heavy. To your point, it's not as near as good of a spot last week. Rams are like 80%.
Yeah, loved him last week.
Yeah. Good call.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on a Baker double? Is this newfound like Chris Godwin guaranteed double-digit targets? Like, does that hurt the double stack? Does that help the double? What's going on here?
There's still just 3 guys, so you just rotate those 3. It's White, it's Godwin, and it's Evans. I think you can play Derek Carr too.
Yeah, it is
I hate the
interesting.
guy, but you can play him.
Yeah, I was looking into this. So like Godwin's ADOT hasn't changed. It's just like they've figured out like, oh yeah, he's really good still. 45% of the air yards last 3 weeks. It's way up. I mean, he was at like 20% basically the whole season. I think he's a really strong play at 61. So that's where my lean is. That's like the first time I've said all year I've been on Evans over Godwin for 15 straight weeks, but might be the first time I'm on Godwin over Evans.
No Marshawn Lattimore. I don't know if he said that.
Yeah, he's been out with that high ankle injury. So
Yep.
Otherwise, this would be the easiest stack ever.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they just got absolutely killed by Puka, Demarcus Robinson at 80-82 and a touchdown. Kupp dropped 2 touchdowns last week too. I mean, this is a really strong spot. So good game. Really good game.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's my favorite game for like, do I think this game was going to have like 50 points scored? Like, no, but I think there's going to be like multiple fantasy assets that hit.
Yeah.
What's with Baker? Why? How did this happen?
Dude, he is just playing with house money. He's playing with house money, man.
That's what happens when you get to play with one of the greatest wide receivers of our generation, Michael Evans.
Yeah, future Hall of Famer, Michael Evans.
He definitely is. He definitely is. People are so mad about it.
He's first ballot, man. I don't even know if it's really that much of a
Hall of very good.
Stop it, man. Stop it.
Yeah.
Dude
People
has
are so mad that he's just smashed his entire career.
Yep. People are so mad he's better this year with Baker Mayfield as opposed to Tom Brady.
Well, Tom Brady called Godwin the wide receiver 1 of the team. He came out and said that. That's why he's my wide receiver 1. But
yeah, he was his wide receiver 1 because he loved those design targets to him, just those like quick screens.
Yeah. The Wes Welker of the NFC, like whatever, man.
Godwin's great, man. But Mike Evans is just absolute baller. All right, 49ers and the Commanders. Oh, boy. Niners 13.5. The total is 48-49. Actually, it's 49.5. Really, the only injuries we're kind of monitoring here is Jacoby Brissett. He popped his hammy in practice today. Just something to monitor. I mean, it kind of seems like he's a legitimate game time decision. So they'd go back to Sam Howell. Good luck. And if this couldn't be any better of a spot for Debo and Ayuk, the Commanders are going to be without both of their starting cornerbacks in this game. Benjamin St-Juste and Kendall Fuller are both going to miss. Just an absolute
starting safety
spot
as well.
Yeah, man. It's an eruption spot here.
It's going to be, listen to this. It's going to be Emmanuel Forbes and a guy who's never played a single snap.
Oh, baby. Forbes is back, baby. Debo's going to put some people on the Forbes list this week. I mean, oh my God, this is such a good spot for Debo.
Yeah.
Can we start Washington side first?
Yeah, Washington's missing a safety too.
Yeah, man, it's brutal.
So
go ahead, Scott. I know we'll talk Niners in a second.
So I was super excited to play Jacoby Brissett. Obviously, like this injury kind of throws a big wrench into the equation, but he's played 5 full drives, five full drives. All 5 drives ended in a touchdown. My tweet was he averages 4.15 fantasy points per drive. Washington's averaging 11.9 drives per game. That would come out to 49.4 fantasy points per game. And like, obviously you can't really make that extrapolation, but it's basically like worst case scenario, you're getting Sam Howell at 4,900. Best case scenario, you're getting like the best version of Sam Howell at 4,900, and Howell at this price tag would be an awesome play. I also think that the stack is more compelling Johnny, you kind of pointed this out that, like all it took was Jacoby Brissett coming into the game to solve the Terry McLaurin issue. And so I think that's a good play. 49ers perimeter cornerbacks haven't been great this year. They've been good recently, but still like fringe bottom 12 on the season, fringe bottom 12 to wide receiver ones in the season. And so I like that. I think Curtis Samuel's still in play as well, but I really liked that Brissett McLaurin stack as a salary saver.
Yeah, we just have to figure out what's going on with Brissett and this hamstring thing from today. It's so annoying. Just don't know who was playing on any team. Graham is muted.
I know. Is he trying to talk to us?
Oh, first time all season.
How the tables have turned.
Oh, the turntables. Damn, man. That was like plus 18. That was plus 1800. So
amateur hour, Graham. Come on.
God,
get it together.
Right. I'm just a mid-professional. I was just gonna say, man, I was excited to talk about Brissett, McLaurin with CMC and Debo as like the nuts game stack, but yeah, this hamstring injury obviously is less than ideal. I think Brissett was probably going to trend closer to being like maybe the second or third highest owned quarterback on the slate, but like he's such a strong play for the exact reason you outlined, Scott. So
regardless, I'm going to have like a shit ton of exposure to him as long as he's active.
Yeah.
And if not, I'll consider pivoting to Howell.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. If Brissett's inactive and Howell plays, and I think I'm with you because they don't have anything else behind him, so they can't bench him, but he could tank again.
Yeah, I don't think I could play Hal.
Yeah,
I mean it's just that. Yeah, I mean Purdy. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, he's just like by EPA numbers, he's been the worst quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, but he's had the spike weeks.
Right, but I'm saying he went from like actually being good to playing so badly that he's now at the literal bottom of the list.
He has been ass. I think ass is putting it kindly for the last 2 weeks.
That's fair. You guys.
No. I think if Brissett's inactive, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's galaxy brain at all to play a little Hal. But yeah, it's definitely a lot lower floor than what we're getting previously. This game's really simple, man. Super simple game. Niners are simple.
Is it? Help me out here. I want to play all of them.
Yeah.
I think you need to this week. You need at least one 49ers player on every single lineup. And you know what? I think I personally am going to have two. I'm going to have a shit ton of Purdy. I'm going to have a shit ton of Brissett if he plays. And like I said, you probably can't. You're not going to be able to fit Tyreek, Kyren, and CMC. I'm going to make some Purdy, Tyreek, Kyren, Debo lineups or Kittle or Ayuk.
Definitely hot.
This game, I think, just goes nuclear. You look at this defense. We just talked about the injuries. They were already the worst defense in the league against quarterbacks, against wide receivers, against wide receiver ones, or across the full season or the last 5 weeks. But they've been far and away the worst against running backs since Jack Del Rio got fired. I think that's a function of Ron Rivera jacking up the rate of too high, which you're going to speak to why that benefits Debo Samuel. So lighter fronts up front, which just like means Christian McCaffrey should smash. He's also been, like with Kyren, like more schedule sensitive than he's getting credit for. He against top 5 matchups, he's averaging 39.8 DraftKings fantasy points per game. We know he like broke the slate both times against Arizona. This is, Washington might be even worse than Arizona when it comes to running back. So like obviously on paper, guy should go nuclear, massive break the slate upside. Yeah. But I think everyone could smash. I think because like the Washington has the worst run defense and the worst pass defense in football by a wide margin. And then Brock Purdy, like, okay, he had a bad game. Who gives a shit? He's still like leading an EPA by like.
You know who gives a shit? Kyle Shanahan. I haven't really heard this talked about too.
Right.
Like, there's no way he's gonna let Brock like not have a good game coming.
Right. Right.
And Trent Williams was out last week. He should I think he's trending in the right direction, right?
Yeah, no, he's going to play.
The only concern, though, Johnny, is maybe he wants CMC to get the MVP.
Yeah, or that Trent Williams should be the MVP. Greatest tackle to ever play football. No, I mean, I just think you get this huge leverage if you play Purdy and Debo and Kittle, or I mean, you could even play Purdy, CMC, and one of the receivers. I mean, I don't love it, but I think it's fine. Like, I wouldn't do it in the Millie Maker. Like, I would want Purdy and receivers, but like in mid-sized fields, you know, the red zone, the spy, that kind of stuff, I would be fine playing 3 of them in McCaffrey. I also have to note, someone said I look great without a hat on today, so I'm just gonna.
You did look great. Look
adorable. There you go. Johnny. Now you look even better. There you
go. So Graham, help me sift through the receivers here.
Yeah. I mean, like you were saying, I mean, Debo has just absolutely killed two high safety coverages. They've like completely abandoned playing man-to-man. They're playing like all zone since they fired Jack Del Rio. Nearly 70% of their coverage is too high, and Debo is just crushing two high safety coverages. 30% target share over Ayuk at 17%, and he's well over 3 yards per route run. I will say, just for like site purposes, it's a lot easier to get Purdy and Debo, or Purdy Debo Ayuk, Purdy Debo Kittle, like whatever you want to do, on DK as opposed to FanDuel. FanDuel, it's a lot harder. Debo's 8,800 over there. He's like the wide receiver 2. Purdy's the I think quarterback 3 or quarterback 4 by pricing. So it's a little easier on DK. Just wanted to note that. But yeah, I think Debo is the clear play over Ayuk. That's not saying that Ayuk doesn't have a good ceiling. It's just, obviously he does, but it does seem like a Debo game.
It's not just that though. It's like we're back to the Debo of 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Where remember, if like Cooper Kupp didn't have a Jerry Rice season, like we'd be talking way more about Debo. Like, I mean, he almost had a Jerry Rice like one of the best seasons of the past decade. And then what happened, Graham? We were told per sources that Debo showed up to camp fat and out of weight, and he showed up in tip-top shape, and he's back. I think he's awesome. Since week 11, Samuel ranks behind only Tyreek Hill in DraftKings fantasy points per game. Ayuk ranks 20th. But the thing is, just this matchup is so insane that Ayuk could easily get there too, or get there instead. But I'm with you that Debo is the right play. Washington's been, I don't know if you know why, Graham. I didn't really dig into it too deeply. But Washington's been tough against tight ends, and maybe that's just because their cornerbacks are so bad. That's certainly possible. But you have Kittle, who's 2,000 cheaper than Debo, 1,500 cheaper than Ayuk, and so there's just like massive value there. And if you look at upside, and remember that like high-end wide receiver 1 upside from a tight end is more valuable than high-end wide receiver 1 upside from a wide receiver, is he leads the position in games with over 22.5 DraftKings fantasy points. No other tight end on this slate comes close. That's also 2 more than either Debo or Ayuk. He's averaging like 3 yards per route run since week 10. He's awesome. He's weirdly like had a bunch of drops in recent weeks. So like his numbers could have been even better if not for that. 5,600. I think that's a steal. So again, like I'm just going to be going San Francisco crazy this week.
Yeah. I was actually looking at that with the tight end for Washington. They've only faced a couple good tight ends. Darren Waller smashed them. The Atlanta tight end smashed them. If you look at full season, like adjusted fantasy points allowed, they like shut down Arizona tight ends. So I think that skews it a little bit for the full season numbers. And then when they played Dallas, Jake Ferguson got hurt. So I think the numbers are a little off on that. But I do think teams just like haven't had to throw to tight ends. So they've also been running the shit out of the ball against them recently. So tight ends are probably staying in to block more.
Yeah. I was just looking through it. I mean, they haven't faced a good tight end since week 8. I mean, it's literally been like 6-7 straight games of teams that either don't throw to their tight ends or they just suck. So,
and Waller crushed them middle of the season.
Yeah.
That's great context. Yeah. Thanks, Johnny.
Yeah. Kittle is a really interesting play. It's going to be interesting to see where the ownership comes out at tight end this week, because people are going to play some Gerald Everett at 3,500. We'll talk about that. People are going to play Trey McBride. for sure.
Really, for ownership's sake, I think I really like Kittle just like by himself. I think Kittle with the most likely scenario where you see Kittle on a team is going to be with Purdy and one of the wide receivers.
Yes, for sure.
And again, I would not make a lineup without at least one 49ers player.
And I've heard that a lot. Like I listen to like a ton of different all around the industry podcasts. I've heard that mentioned a couple of times. People aren't going to actually do it. Like people don't set those rules. They talk about it, and they don't do it. Scott included.
Damn.
Calling me out.
Coming out with a burn shotgun. Nah, but you're absolutely right. That's probably the best way to play this game. Great game, man. All right, we'll move on to another great game. Dolphins, Ravens. Ravens getting 3. Total is 47. Got some injury notes. Jalen Waddle is out. Raheem Mostert picked up a new ankle injury last week, but I think he's going to play. Devon Achane is still limited. He's going to play. Ravens side is a little tricky, though. Zay Flowers has a calf injury. He basically didn't practice all week. He got back limited today, just something to monitor throughout the weekend. And the Ravens might be down 2 starters in the secondary with Kyle Hamilton and Brandon Stevens both trending the wrong way in this spot. Let's talk Tyreek. No Waddle. I mean, in the one game he's played without Waddle this year, it was that 70-point demolition against the Broncos, and Hill basically had like 157 yards, nine receptions in like 3 quarters. So
on like 20 ceiling. Routes.
Bro, insane ceiling in this spot. McCaffrey's ceiling projected is probably like 46. I think Hill should be like honestly right kind of behind him, maybe like 43.
He might get 2,000 yards just in this game. Yeah. Not reach 2,000, like 2,000 receiving yards.
Yeah. Johnny, I'll toss to you first, man. We're obviously on Tyreek. What is there any like leverage in this game for Tyreek if you're not getting there? Is there any reason to fade Tyreek? Because I don't see any really. I mean, Mike McDaniel is so good at getting this guy the ball.
Yeah, I do.
It could be the injury.
I was just going to say, I think I do. Like, if I had to pick between CMC and Tyreek, it's probably CMC just because I think he's in a cleaner spot. Tyreek does still have a high ankle sprain. Obviously, he's superhuman, but it's a tough thing to play through. And I probably, like, if I had to pick a side, like over or under, I'd probably take the under. These are like 2 of the NFL's best defenses right now at the end of the season. Yeah. So I think this game could be a little uglier than people hope for. Lots of injuries on both sides too, but the injuries are all on the offenses. Outside of, I don't know if we've gotten the update on Kyle Hamilton. I think that.
Yeah, he's probably not going to play. He's been awesome for them.
So, but at the same time, I mean, Ravens are always deep at safety. So, Tyreek is probably, just in terms of volume and boost that he's going to get without Waddle, he's an awesome play. But I do probably like this game less than the total would sort of tell us it's going to be.
Yeah, I think that's on that.
That's fair. If you want to bet the under, that's fair. I'm not too concerned about Tyreek. 92% route share last week. He's off the injury report, full practice today. This just seems like a wheels up spot. Also, Devon Achane's off the injury report, full practice today too. So,
but if I told you Tyreek got 14 targets in a game, would you say he had less than 100 yards?
He had 99 last week.
Yeah, but I mean, I still don't think he.
Well, he also dropped a 91-yard touchdown.
Yeah, I don't like. He's still awesome. I just don't think he's 100%.
Yeah,
but I mean, you could say who is 100% at this point of the season.
80% Tyreek is like 120% anyone else, right?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at.
By the way, the Rich Rebar stat was great. He looked at every single route where Jalen Waddle wasn't on the field. Tyreek was targeted 1 out of every 2.1 routes. Like, that's insane. And like Jalen Waddle basically saw the same usage a couple weeks back.
He was like 46% target share or something like that.
It's insane.
Well, I mean, if this game does go off and we get 35 routes out of Hill, I mean he could go for 200 yards. Yeah, man, great game. It's funny though, like Tua's playing really, really well, and he's finished outside of the top 20 scoring quarterbacks in 4 of his last 6 games. And I don't have too much interest in stacking him in this spot. You can just get all the upside with Hill. Did want to note that. Let's talk through real quick Dolphins backfield. Scott, you got a take on that? I mean, Mostert's hurt. Achane is healthier now, though. I think we're going to see a little more Achane in this spot.
Yeah, so I keep chasing this. Like this has been like my biggest blind spot is like I keep playing Achane and because the massive upside, like we saw him break the slate 3-4 weeks in a row with like minimal touches. The guy looked unstoppable, untackleable. Chris Johnson 2.0. It's Mike McDaniel, the genius who specializes in the run game. It's all that stuff. I just seriously worry about the health. I don't think he's healthy. And like, he ended up playing a lot of snaps last week, but I think that was just because Mostert got hurt. But like early on in the game, he was not touching. I think he only finished with like 8 touches. Jeff Wilson was getting touches. The offensive line is banged up. And so like, just because of how much this has burnt me, I'm just going to try and get Tyreek. But I mean, yeah, I've played it every week for a reason. So
the Jeff Wilson stuff was weird last week, man. He was like their finisher, and I know Mostert had the ankle injury, but Achane was that guy. When they blew up Washington, when he came back, I mean, he got like all their fourth quarter stuff. So that is a big concern that he's off the injury report, but he's not healthy. Johnny, do you have a lean here?
Yeah, I probably just won't. Yet again, I'll probably just exclude Dolphins running backs and not worry about it.
Yeah,
it's just too hard to figure out. So, barring like Mostert, them saying he's not going to play or he's going to be limited or something, I'm just going to exclude them. I do think you mentioned like leverage on Tyreek, and I think it's playing Ravens defense with Justice or Gus. Tough to figure these guys out, but I think there is some leverage there.
Yeah, Gus is just, I mean, he has to score, but he can score. Dolphins run defense has been really good, though. They've been really good. Let's talk through Ravens side. Flowers is dealing with that calf injury, like I mentioned at the top. This is an interesting schematic matchup for Isaiah Likely. Dolphins are like playing all cover 3 and cover 6 since Jalen Ramsey came back. Vic Fangio's big cover 3, cover 6 guy. And Likely has basically since he took over, he's been perfect against those two coverages. He's caught 11 of 12 targets, 126 yards and a touchdown in his last 4 games. Likely is basically a big slot receiver, 63% of his routes inside. Dolphins are much tougher, obviously, against outside receivers with Ramsey and kind of neutral against slot receivers. So I do like Likely in this spot. Odell Beckham has some crazy incentives in his contract. He's been literal dust for the last 2 weeks after he looked kind of back mid-season. It's hard to stack these Ravens receivers. John, do you have a real preference here? Or lean if you're playing Lamar?
No. I've seen the Odell stuff, and the best time to get him some of that yardage and possible touchdowns would have been last week when they're blowing out the 49ers, and he barely played. So not really interested in him there. I think if Zay were to be out, I'd probably be like all in on Isaiah Likely. I think his target share would be just blow up. But again, it's like even if Lamar smashes, it's like you've no idea who to play him with for like a double stack. I think you can pair Lamar with Baltimore defense too. We've talked about that in the past if you want that leverage, but it's just always so hard to play him. I think he's a decent play, but Miami defense is not, a team to really target. So I probably just won't play Lamar. He's also going to be owned.
Yeah, it's fair. Scott, you got to take on Lamar here.
Yeah, again, I'm kind of just avoiding the expensive quarterbacks. I just don't think it's necessary. He's putting together an MVP caliber season, but the fantasy production is just not really there, in part because Harbaugh talked about this many weeks ago, just getting the running backs more involved in the red zone. That's really capping his upside. I'm with you guys on Likely. And you brought up the schematic matchup, and I think that's a really important point. Like that's what made the Lamar plus Andrews combination so deadly is, you play zone coverage because you're worried about his mobility, but then Mark Andrews destroys zone coverage. And now it's likely just sliding into that. Flowers, I think, is overrated. He's banged up, doesn't have a single game over 80 receiving yards. He's just like a screen merchant. I think he's overrated, but he's cash viable because he's a little underpriced.
Yeah, and just consider if you play Lamar, the Lamar Tyreek likely stack is going to be what everyone does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I said Flowers is so overrated last week too, Scott. And of course, he scored another freaking touchdown on us. But man, they don't even throw downfield to him anymore. They're just throwing to Bateman and Aguilar and Beckham when he's out there. I mean, yeah. I was going to mention one other thing. It just slipped my mind. All right, it'll come back to me. Panthers, Jags. Jags getting 36.5 is the total. Trevor Lawrence is not going to play. He's dealing with a million different injuries. Zay Jones is questionable on the Jag side. On the Panther side, interesting note here. Troy Hill, their slot corner, is out, and J.C. Horn, their boundary corner, is questionable. Panthers have been a really tough matchup against perimeter receivers. And I think some of that is just volume driven. Most of it is volume driven. They're only facing 18 targets per game to outside wide receivers. And if you look at the games where they've been competitive, last week Panthers gave up 10 catches, 152 yards to Packers wide receivers. Mike Evans had a good game against them. So I don't think this is a horrific spot, but obviously it's Beathard versus Bryce Young. Johnny, I don't have too much here, man. Evan Ingram's going to get funneled the ball, but it's CJ Beathard. I don't know how much interest I have in this game.
It's man, I want to play Travis Etienne.
Yeah.
But then you look at the recent logs and then you don't want to play him anymore.
Yeah, their offensive line has been ass all season. They could get Cam Robinson back, which would be huge. He's their only really good lineman left at this point, but man, Etienne has just been so bad. This offensive line has just been bad. So
yeah, and it's so annoying that he got the price bump because they're playing Carolina, so he's 7,200.
Yeah,
mid sixes, I probably would have been pretty interested.
Yep.
But I don't know.
He was 6,800 last week, I think. So
yeah, he was right. He was mid sixes, mid to high sixes. And then Scott, I think you can play Adam Thielen. I think you can play DJ Shark. But I'm not super stoked about them, but I think they're in play. I think you can always just play wide receivers against Jacksonville. And we saw Carolina where they finally were in a good spot to throw, managed to have some production out of these guys.
Yeah. I don't think you could play Thielen in a reverse slot funnel. What happened with that chart game? That was really weird. Someone played him in the 5.55 milli.
The Chipotle or Papa Gates played him a bunch last week and won every fucking contest.
How did he get on DJ Chark? The guy had nothing for 15 straight weeks.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. Yeah, I think it was just I think probably what happened is he's his model was a Carolina wide receiver is gonna hit here, and he was I'm not playing Jonathan Mingo again. And then so he played DJ Shark instead. And I think he probably had 10% of him or something, but he was the only person who had him.
Yeah, 10% DJ Shark was gold last week. Yeah. I will say, Scott, to your point, I was looking into this. So Thielen has been 75% slot all season. Last week that bumped to 51% out wide. So
oh wow, interesting.
Yeah, I wanted. Yeah, I went back and rewatched that game. Bryce Young played really well. They changed up their deployment for all their guys. Thielen played outside a little more. Chark played inside a little more. Mingo sucks, but he played inside more. Yeah, interesting for Thielen this week. I'm kind of on that too, Johnny. And it feels chasey for Chark, but to your point, man, dude, the Jags are giving up the same amount of fantasy points per game to outside wide receivers as the Commanders, and we're all over the Niners. So, just an idea of how good this spot is.
Yeah, it's why we played Mike Evans last week. So you can definitely go there again this week. And Chark is what, 3,500?
It
and people
feels
aren't gonna
chasey,
play
but
him.
it's not bad.
I mean, you're saying it feels chasey, but you can be chasey with a 3,600 priced wide receiver who just
that's
scored
right.
30 DK and
Right,
no
who's
one's
going to be
playing him.
3% out? Yeah,
Yeah, that's absolutely.
I also think you can play Bryce. You know, it was his only good game of the year, but this is a great matchup, and maybe they like figured something out. He's like a 3% guy, but I think we buried the lead a little bit. I think Evan Ingram might be the best, tight end GPP play of the slate. Like, what's the difference between him and David Njoku over the last, I don't know how many weeks? He's had 80 receiving yards or more in 3 of his last 4 games. CJ Beathard has targeted him on 41% of his throws. Calvin Ridley's at 17%, 41%. Dude is an awesome play.
Yeah. Now he's really strong, and Panthers
play him in the flex.
Panthers have not been as good against tight ends. I was looking into this this afternoon, but last 6 weeks they've given up nearly 10 yards per target, like 81% catch rate. Efficiency has just not been. The efficiency has been there. Just bulk production is not there, because I was saying at the top, I mean, most games teams just don't throw against the Panthers because they're getting absolutely killed. This game should be tight, 4-point spread. Definitely in on Ingram for sure. McBride, I mean, I've been on McBride every single week, but you're going to catch Ingram at like 3%, and McBride's going to probably push 20 again. So I love that call.
Panthers defense, is that the best defense of the slate, Johnny?
I think they're a weird price. 2,700. Yeah. No, I think they're fine. Yeah, I'd probably prefer the Ravens though at 2,800.
Ravens
or the Broncos are 2,900. I'd probably play them both over the Panthers.
Yeah,
but the Panthers are fine.
Yeah, Panthers with Chuba is fine again. Chuba got there with the touchdown last week, but he's so mid. Jags have been really good against the run. You could go back to it if you wanted to, but yeah.
Ooh, Chark revenge game.
Oh, yeah, wow. How did we miss? Right. How did I miss that angle? Holy hell! In Jacksonville too.
Right.
He's gonna go in there and stick it to him.
Right.
4 catches for 30 yards, baby. Let's go.
Oh yeah.
Titans Texans, last game of a marathon in massive 1:00 window. The NFL gifted us with 10 games in the early window. There are only 3 in the afternoon. Thanks a lot. Texans getting 4, total 44. Will Levis versus CJ Stroud. Stroud is back. Levis is back. Nico Collins is off the injury report. This is like one of the few games where we actually have like good injury news. Oh, baby. I don't think people are going to play CJ Stroud, Johnny.
I sure am.
Yeah, I will be too.
Yeah, he's probably going to be my highest owned quarterback of the slate. I've seen a lot of people or heard a lot of people saying how, we have to consider that he's not 100%. And I think that's just completely wrong. If he's playing, if he's cleared the concussion protocol, then he's 100%. So I think we need to assume he's 100%. If he gets hit in the head again and goes out, like that's just bad luck. It's not like he's going to like be out there with headaches or something.
I think the reason people are saying that is because some of the symptoms he was having last week were, obviously pretty severe. But yeah, I mean, they've played it slow. He's missed 2 games. He's still in. He passed through the protocol. I mean, this is a massive game, absolutely massive. I mean, Jags don't have Lawrence. If the Texans win, they're in the driver's seat for the AFC South. So wheels up on Stroud, man.
Wheels up on Texans.
What's that?
Wheels up on Texans.
I was just about to say wheels up on Nico Collins. I think Nico Collins is my favorite play on the slate. I mean, he's 7,300 on FanDuel. I think he's like 7,100 on DK. In 11 games with CJ Stroud, he's averaging 90 yards per game. He's the wide receiver 8 by fantasy points per game, and this is like a dream spot. I mean, Titans against boundary receivers has been an ATM for 3 years. It's just an absolute smash spot. But I got to ask Scott for his thoughts on Noah Brown. You're not only the Rashid Shaheed whisperer, you're the Noah Brown whisperer. What do you think about Noah Brown and Texans here, man?
Yeah, I mean, there's an argument for his upside. Just there's only 3 wide receivers with more 150-yard games, and He's led the team in receiving, I think, in 4 of his last 6 or 7, something like that. But I'm not really on him. I don't think he's healthy. I don't think he's close to healthy. I think he's been like insanely banged up for a number of weeks now. I think Collins is more healthy than he is. And so I'm with you. I think Collins, like, this has been one of the biggest cheat codes in DFS. When Stroud is healthy, Houston's wide receiver 1, whoever it is, tends to break the slate. So, yeah, obviously really love Nico Collins this week in a great matchup. Titans have ranked bottom 6 in schedule adjusted fantasy points per game allowed to outside wide receivers for 6 years in a row. Crazy.
Yeah. Vrabel doesn't give a single shit about fixing his outside corners. He's tried, but he's given up.
Yeah, Stroud doubles are awesome.
Yeah, really strong. I like Dalton Schultz too.
Mm-hmm. I'd like him more than Noah.
Yes, yep. Same. Yeah,
Woods is fine too, just as a cheap third.
Yeah, Schultz is really strong.
The worst part about Nico, though, is that everyone is figuring it out. Like over the last 24 hours, I keep seeing people posting his home road splits, and it just makes me want to blow my brains out because he's going to be like 20% owned by Sunday.
Yeah, he's 3% right now.
That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Yeah, that's not going to happen. I mean, if he stays even under 20%, I mean, I still think he's the best play on the slate.
Yeah, he's the best wide receiver play on the slate
for sure. Devin Singletary, I will say, is interesting too. Just same reasons. We're just buying attachment with Stroud. He's 5,600. Dameon Pierce is obviously, either he's probably hurt and just a horrible scheme fit. I think Singletary's a really strong play at 5,600 too. Johnny, can we play Stroud and Singletary together though? That feels donkey.
I don't think so. I think a lot of the like massive, or not massive, but a couple of the spiked target weeks, like 3-5-3, were with oh god, I can't even remember his name right now.
Keenum.
But Case Keenum. Yeah, but for the most part, he didn't have a ton of targets with Stroud. It's like 1 or 2. And then Dameon Pierce, after returning the 90-yard touchdown, I don't know if that buys him more snaps or not. I do like Singletary, but I probably don't like him as much as I like the passing game, because I think they probably want to get Stroud going. Stroud's pushing for offensive rookie of the year too. Just don't love it as much as I.
Yeah, I'm with you, but my bias is just so strong on Stroud. Like, 7,100 and Nico is just like eyes lighting up. So I'm more with you on that. Titans side, I mean, DeAndre Hopkins is going to get 1 million targets again. They're gonna chuck it deep, but I mean, he's definitely in play for Stroud stacks for sure. No defense is giving up a higher average depth of target to outside wide receivers than the Texans, and no quarterback is throwing deep more often than Will Levis. So, like Hopkins quite a bit. Johnny, what do you think Hopkins' ownership is going to be? People are going to play him. I mean, he's been awful the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, no.
We have him as chalky.
Yeah, I'm looking at this too. I was like, where the hell did this come from? I don't think that's going to be right.
Yeah, that's why I was asking you, man, because I mean, I'm seeing him at like 15%, 16%. It's a little surprising to me.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen. Definitely going to come down.
Right.
That's probably on like initial runs where you, he's really like the only guy in that like 6K range. So he probably just projects for ownership because there's no one else to play in that price range.
Yep, that's a good call.
Now that I'm like scrolling, that's probably the only reason why. But yeah, I don't think that ownership is going to end up happening. I don't know. I think Burks is a little interesting too. I think as a downfield guy, he's finally healthy. I mean, I don't think he's any good, but
yeah, he's at least got a full-time role again.
He's super cheap.
I like Chig again too. Scott, I think you were on Chig last week. He only needed Derrick Henry to throw him a touchdown, his first of the year. But hey man, he's in play. 3,600, good matchup. Texans giving up the 4th most receiving yards per game to tight ends.
Yeah,
he's definitely in play.
Yeah, he's showing a little chalky, 12%. I don't like him at that ownership.
That's fair.
He's had a usage bump in recent weeks, but Josh Wiley and Trevon Wesco are both going to be back this week, so that's probably going to come down a little bit. And bottom line is he just hasn't really done anything all year. DeAndre Hopkins, nuts schematic matchup, nuts on paper matchup. That said, he had this same matchup 2 weeks ago and he sucked ass. And really, he's been pretty overrated. He's had like 3 games over 25 DraftKings fantasy points, but has been otherwise like a bust the entire time. So I'm not super into him, but I get it. Jake Tribby's all over Will Levis this week. He likes him a lot. I guess it's that Houston's going to be able to push him to keep his foot on the gas, and it's a great schematic matchup. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not really on
I think there's a little more to that too. Like, this is the rookie quarterback playing against the offensive rookie of the year. I think Vrabel considers that kind of stuff. It's also the end of the season. That's like one of the few things, to play for.
Yeah. And, Texans absolutely dominated the Titans up front last time they played. I liked Brissett obviously a ton. We all do at 4,900, but I'm with Jake. If we don't get Brissett, I think Levis is really interesting at 5,200. I love Stroud. It's going to be hard to move off of that, but I think that's a really good call. I was going to mention too, we got to adjust the revenge game narrative a little bit for Nuke because this game's in Houston. Last game was in Tennessee, so he's going to be even more motivated because it's in Houston. All right, let's keep it moving. We got 3 games left. Steelers, Seahawks. Seahawks 3.5, 41 is the total. Mason Rudolph's going to start on the Steelers side, even though Kenny Pickett seems like he can play. Minka Fitzpatrick is going to miss another game. Seahawks have like half their team on the injury report. The only 3 that we really care about. DK Metcalf has back tightness, according to Pete Carroll. It seems like he's going to play. Ken Walker's still dealing with a shoulder injury. He's questionable. And I think they're going to get Devin Witherspoon back. Witherspoon, they're awesome corner. He's missed their last 2 games here. Man, this game is pretty gross. Johnny, I'll throw it to you for your thoughts here.
Yeah, I think Charbonnet is pretty interesting, especially because it's the later game, so he's not going to have ownership. I don't think he's any good, but I think the Steelers' defense is not great. And I think 4,600 is a pretty good price. So he's a guy I would have some interest in. I think he's someone it's going to be good for late swap too. And then I think, like, if you want to play a Steeler, I think Pickens is a little interesting. We did hear the report that him and Rudolph had a thing, like in practice, and then it obviously showed up during the game. But at the same time, this is definitely a tougher matchup than the NFL's worst defense, the Cincinnati Bengals. So probably just don't really love this game.
Yeah, Bengals were, I thought, going to be a really good defense this year. They just gotten absolutely thrashed. This is a horrible spot for Deontay. He has just like massive splits against zone coverages, 1.3 yards per route run against zone. He's averaging 3.3, 2 yards more against man coverage. Pickens has more receiving yards against zone coverages than Deontay Johnson on like 12 fewer targets. So I'm with you. If you want to play Steeler, it's Pickens. It's a good spot for these backs though. But I mean, Najee's the goal line guy. Jalen's ceiling has just not been there. It's a good spot, but I can't get there. There's better running back plays. Scott, what do you think about this game?
Got him.
Got his ass.
Yeah, I've got nothing. Charbonnet if Walker's out. Otherwise, I'm avoiding.
Yeah. All right, cool. We'll keep it moving. Chargers, Broncos. Broncos getting 3.5, 36.5 is the total. Easton Stick versus Jarrett Stidham. Get excited, boys. Oh, my goodness. Going to be an offensive explosion. Keenan Allen's not going to play. Josh Palmer's not going to play. Courtland Sutton's not going to play. Marvin Mims popped his hammy in practice again. He's probably not going to play. There's not much from this game. I will say Javonte Williams is a little interesting, though, Johnny. A little. Good game script. He's coming off of 2 really bad matchups. I don't know. I don't have much from this game. What do you think, Broncos, Chargers?
I think if Marvin Mims is out, this Brandon Johnson kid's a little bit interesting as punts. Seems like someone that Peyton just likes, and I imagine Stidham has had a lot of reps with him for Scott's backup connection model. Otherwise, I mean, this is one of those like Sean Payton needs to show that like his system works. So I think we could see him really trying to like lay it on the Chargers. I just don't know if they have enough bodies on the offensive side to really do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'd much rather play Brandon Johnson than the ghost of Jerry Jeudy. Even if he was alive at one point. This game's so ugly, man. This Russ stuff is so weird too. Like such bad vibes. Like I Russ is obviously probably never gonna even come close to, where, he was. Obviously, he's just not even come close to earning that contract. Sorry, I was reading something else. Tweet just came up, but it's just bizarre. Trying to strong arm him out of money.
The thing that he's gonna waive like an injury guarantee and then like be mad about it. Fuck off.
Yeah. Russ honestly handled it really well. He's still in the building. They're asking him about it today, and he handled it really, really well. But
yeah,
gross, man. Just absolutely gross situation in Denver. And to your point, Peyton has just ego the size of Denver, so he's absolutely going to try to make Stidham work.
I think he is going to work. I think he's going to surprise me. I mean, like, I get he has no one to throw to, but that's Sean Payton's quarterback, like backup quarterbacks have always smashed. Drew Brees was averaging 20 fantasy points per game when he was like 44 and cooked. Trevor Siemian, 18 fantasy points. Jameis Winston, 17.2. Teddy Bridgewater, 17.1. I think he's a genius, and I think Greg Cassell was right that Russ has been cooked for like 6 years, or not 6 years, 3 or 4 years. It's been really bad.
Here's the thing. I don't think Russ is cooked. I don't think Russ knows how to play in the modern NFL. He has
without his mobility.
Dude, he has been either chuck it deep or check down all season. And I mean, if you do that, it's just a really hard way to live. Like he doesn't throw over the middle. He's not a scrambler anymore. It's just a hard way to live.
Yeah, he wants to play out of structure. Peyton wants him to play in structure, so it's just not working. But yeah, to Scott's point, I think Stidham will play in structure. It's just a matter of like who are they throwing to, or the Chargers going to push them at all. I do like Gerald Everett. I think he's a really good play, but he's going to be massive chalk.
He's definitely like the cash tight end play of the week. Season high route share last week. Massive target share with Easton Stick. Also Jerry Jeudy, I think, is like a guy to sprinkle in if you're an MME player. No one's going to think about him, but they just have no one else.
Yeah, if you want to talk about the cheap double stack to get, or cheap triple stack to get you everybody else, it's playing Stidham, Jeudy, Brandon Johnson, and Gerald Everett.
Wow.
Oh, baby.
Wow.
Yeah.
I bet you Siege is going to have that. Big Stidham fan. I think he bet me like $300 that Stidham was going to outscore Tom Brady or something like that. And I'm like,
dude,
okay.
I think I just had a flashback to those DMs. He was like, I think he bought this Stidham off of me in our Dynasty League, Scott, for like a second round pick. I think he did. I'm remembering that. Let's talk Gerald Everett real quick because I'm with you. Donald Parham was a healthy scratch last week. Scott, you alluded to it. Season high route share, 20 targets with Easton Stick last couple weeks. He's not good, but I mean, they've got no one else to throw to with Josh Palmer out, and Quentin Johnson sucks. Jalen Guyton sucks. Like, he's going to get the ball. I do like Javonte. Sitting here thinking about it more. I think he's a really, really interesting, like 5% play, 5,600. All right, last game of the week here, boys. Hour and a half show. Let's finish strong. Bengals, Chiefs. Chiefs are getting 6.5. This moved through 7. 44 is the total. I think Jamar Chase plays this week. Limited in practice. Thursday and Friday. There was a report from Ian Rappaport, who's been awesome this year, by the way. He said he's probably going to miss 2 to 4 weeks, but Chase is gamer of all gamers. Bengals are like on, the edge of the AFC wildcard hunt. If they lose this game, they're pretty much dead. Chiefs side, we were waiting on Isaiah Pacheco. He got back to limited practice today. He's got a clear concussion protocol tomorrow. Jerick McKinnon's on IR. Kadarius Toney is going to miss. And a huge injury note for the Chiefs defense is L'Jarius Sneed has a calf injury. He did not practice all week. So just a huge injury note to monitor for the Chiefs here. Scott, I'll kick it to you first for your thoughts on the game. Is Patrick Mahomes an expensive quarterback? He's 7,500 now. It's a good spot. He's just been so bad. Anything about Mahomes? What do you think about this? What do you think about this game here, man?
Yeah, I think he's going to be owned. People are, talking about this as like the nuts matchup, which it is, and like, chip on his shoulder, which, valid. It's just he hasn't been good for fantasy for a really long time. He's not playing well this year. A lot of people want to make excuses for the wide receivers. Greg Cassell had a great clip earlier today. He's just not seeing it well. He's not playing well. And so like at his price, he's still expensive to me, even with the matchup. I think Travis Kelce, I think he's on the verge of retirement. I think he's lost a step or he's not healthy. He's overpriced. I think Rashee Rice is one of the best wide receiver values of the slate. I think Cincinnati side is if Jamar Chase is out and L'Jarius Sneed plays, T. Higgins is interesting. If Chase is out, maybe Tanner Hudson's a little in play, or Eo Shivas, the rookie wide receiver. You could stack with Jake Browning and try and game stack this. I think that's a little interesting, but realistically, it's kind of just Rashee Rice to me, and not really anyone else except for the running backs, which is more uncertainty.
Yep.
Yeah,
but it looked.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, but I'm assuming Pacheco plays.
He did practice. He still has to clear.
Yeah.
If he plays, if he's active, I think he's a really good play because no one's going to play him.
Awesome.
And I think Chiefs defense just like swarms the Bengals. I think the Bengals are just a dead team walking.
Without L'Jarius Sneed though,
Jake Browning sucks, man.
That's true. He's also just like check down city.
Dude,
yeah, I'm so mad that the Jake Browning meltdowns like waited until after he was like chalk on main slates. So annoying.
I know.
He didn't have a Nick Mullins type meltdown, but he almost did last week. Almost.
Nick, put some respect on Nick Mullins' name. Yeah. He threw for 400 yards.
God, playing Steelers defense was like the easiest thing of all time on that mini slate.
Nick Mullins threw for 400 yards with like a 15% turnover worthy throw rate.
Dude, he was horrible. I don't know how he threw for 400 yards.
Oh my God. Browning was not good last week either. There's significant downside with Browning for sure in this spot. And that does scare me for Higgins, scares me for Chase. But yeah, we're just waiting on so many injury notes for this game. I will say if Pacheco's out, Johnny, I'm definitely with you on Chiefs D. Clyde and Chiefs D is interesting.
Yeah, if Pacheco's out, Clyde's like the best play on the slate. And I don't think he'll be played that heavily. Like I think Zamir will still be more owned, which is a little surprising.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think we'll see Edwards-Helaire at like 25, and I think I said White at like 35-40. So yeah. Guys, awesome job. Hour and a half of the best game by game breakdown of the week. No lineup this week because we've been going so long. But any final thoughts here, boys, before we close it out?
We'll make a lineup on our show, Johnny.
Yeah, we can. I think this week it's really important to be cognizant of how chalky each quarterback stack is going to be. Like the lineups that people are playing, the stacks are pretty set.
Yeah, that's fair. It does seem condensed in that way this week. There's just so many injuries. Helps it too. Guys, great job again. Good luck this week in all your tournaments. Hopefully one of us wins a tournament. If we don't, we'll see you guys at the top of the leaderboards. So for Scott, for Johnny, for Tom Tipple behind the production. We'll see you guys next week. Good luck in week 17.